Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. We are waking up with watches, and everything you see here is for sale. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. All names, references, and watch prices where available are in the description below. And remember, whether you're selling one watch or an entire collection, we are buying the highest prices we paid since our founding in 2017. We are in an acquisition mode. As always, reach out to tmosso at thewatchbox.com. All right, instant gratification. I promised you the Zenith Defy INVENTOR, and here it is. Based on the 2017 Defy Lab concept, this is a high-frequency oscillator built into a 44mm titanium case with an aeronith bezel. Now that is basically a metallic aluminum foam. The original Defy Lab was built entirely of this material. Here you can see the case is a combination of grade 5 titanium and this aeronith material, which is extraordinary in appearance, and along with the titanium leads to a very light watch on the wrist. Now you can see the Zenith Oscillator internally. It is a monoblock silicon component that replaces 30 parts. It operates at an incredible 129,600 vibrations per hour, so 18 hertz or 36 vibrations per second. Now you can see that it indexes a driving wheel that operates the entire train. And yes, you may have asked, and I will answer, there is a hacking or stop seconds function. Well, you can see the oscillator might vibrate a little. You are able to set the watch to the second. Now the timepiece, of course, being anti-magnetic thanks to the use of the silicon, is completely unconventional. There is no Swiss lever in here, as the oscillator, which is both the balance, the oscillating mass, and I should say more than both. It is the oscillating mass, it is the balance, and it is also effectively the lever, so it is driving directly the movement. 50-hour power reserve, automatic winding, silicon, so all of this is anti-magnetic, 100 meters water resistant, and let's throw it on the wrist real quick. I should mention that the number one virtue of this system is that it allows the watch to run between 1/3 and 1/2 second per day accurate. It's certified as a fully cased up watch by Time Lab, which means it is a COSC equivalent, albeit cased up and then tested, rather than tested as a bare movement as you would have with the COSC. So the Zenith Oscillator, again, it's the balance, it's the lever, it's the mass, the oscillating mass, all in one, and that's one of the main reasons this watch only has 20 joules. It needs no more. So let's take a quick look at a more traditional watch. We've seen the most avant-garde engineering. Now let's look back to something that represents the warm, fuzzy feeling of heritage and patrimony undilute. This is the Patek Philippe 5370P, 41mm in platinum. This is a watch that came out in 2015 and was probably the best Patek of that year. You can see the watch all in ultra-white platinum, features evacuated case flanks with a combination of interior satin and polished outer faces. There are small white gold cabochons at the end of the lugs, and you can see that the bezel is a concave profile with little lip abutting the crystal to visually pair the mass. There is a coaxial split-second trigger built into the crown, and you will note this dial, which features grand faux enamel in black, also features illumined hands for the hours and the minutes, as well as applique and polished white gold Breguet-style Arabic numerals. Grand faux enamel in black is exceptionally rare, one of the many reasons this watch is a flagship piece and an application piece from Patek. Now, taking a quick look at the case back, you could see that the watch uses a version of the caliber 535 Petit Seconde. The 29-535, of course, a manufacture movement succeeding the old Lemagnas. It is a lateral clutch chronograph with 2 column wheels, one of which is hiding underneath the Rattrapant bridge, and you can see a forest of springs activating, clinching, and releasing the Rattrapant pinchers at center. There is a decoupling system so that the chronograph does not drag and slow the watch while you have frozen the split seconds hand. This is a high-end feature used notably by Patek Philippe and Lange. Now you can see the lateral clutch is all of silver satin finish. It's steel with beveled edges and satin tops. Engine turning on the base plate. There's a spare Côte de Genève on the minimalist bridges and engine turning down below the balance. The balance beaten away at 28.8, free sprung. It is 6 position adjusted, not the chronometer standard of 5, but 6. There is a hacking or stop seconds function, and the watch has a manual wind power reserve of 65 hours. Now, assuming you want to operate the standard chronograph functions. You can see the second, or I should say primary column wheel, which is black polished and capped, comes into play. Note the use of a fully jeweled lateral clutch. This is a very special watch and an easy one to wear. At 41 millimeters, despite being a monster complication from a technical standpoint, it's an easy timepiece to wear flush to the wrist. You can see that diamond between the lugs, reminding you that this is a Patek Philippe in platinum. The timepiece looks good. It sits low. It fits under a cuff. It's a dress watch, yes, but with the white metal and the dark dial, it also has a little bit of a sporty flair. Full deploying clasp. We'll go back into the movement one more time to take a look at the beveling on the edge of not just the bridges, but also every single lever, horn, clutch component of the chronograph. All of that has been mirrored on its edge. This is Patek Philippe finish at the highest level. Let's talk Rolex for a minute, but in a fashion I rarely see, a full yellow gold GMT as launched back in 2005 at Baselworld. This was the beginning of the era of the super case GMT, the all solid link solid clasp bracelet GMT, and the GMT with a ceramic bezel insert. It was also the beginning of the GMT with a green GMT hand and script on the dial. So this watch, a series of famous firsts, still a chronometer, still 2 time zones, 3 if you use the rotating bezel, 100 meters water resistant, and easy to wear in spite of being a 40. It does have the wrist presence of a 42 or a 43, and that's characteristic of both this watch and the similarly structured and similarly sized Submariner Supercase. A great looking watch and a very viable summertime piece for Miami Beach, for the Sunset Strip in LA, for the Riviera, French or Italian, or if you're a little bit offbeat and you're trying something different, maybe Greece or Turkey on the Mediterranean. This is a timepiece that has a lovely warmth to it and works well with any skin tone. And of course, being relatively flush, though it is a sports watch, it could also be your dress watch underneath the cuff. Hey, collect them all. Or choose your favorite full yellow gold Rolex core sports watch. This, of course, is the Submariner. This watch, of course, being the 116618 in yellow gold, featuring the Sub-C ceramic insert. And note the use of both the ceramic for the insert and deposits of yellow gold inside to give it that sharp definition and contrast. Yellow gold hands, yellow gold indices on a black lacquer dial. As with the GMT, same fundamental movement architecture, 48-hour power reserve, stop seconds, quick set date, 300 meters water resistant here compared to 100 for the GMT. And of course, on the wrist, they could be body doubles. They are very similar in fit, feel, sizing, and wrist appearance. The stance is similar, but inside the clasp, the advantage is all to the Sub, as it features Rolex's glide lock system, 20 millimeters of incremental adjustment that allows you to pull all the way out, if you wish, over a dive suit, or make incremental 2 millimeter sizing adjustments to better fit your wrist under different circumstances of activity, hot and cold. Of course, this is the iconic Rolex diver since 1953, possibly the most iconic Rolex watch, and certainly the dive watch of reference. A fantastic piece, and in yellow gold, I have to mention that a modern day full solid link, solid clasp Rolex bracelet winds up feeling like platinum from any other brand. So what do we make of a full platinum Rolex? Well, this is a 2001 serial number Rolex Oyster Perpetual Date 118206 with a domed bezel in platinum. This watch features the rare silver and blue wave dial, an unconventional look. It's made even more so by the lovely blued radially arrayed Arabic numerals. Now you can see the Rolex wave pattern, often seen as decor inside Rolex boutiques and shop-in-shops. It's actually designed by Rolodeco, which is a company that handles Rolex interior decoration at boutiques and authorized dealers. So this is a very thematically Rolex dial that ties very closely to the maritime and aquatic heritage of Rolex in the era of the Oyster case since the 1920s. A great looking watch at 36 millimeters in full platinum with the matching platinum Rolex President bracelet. It's an impressive piece without being gaudy, flamboyant, or particularly audacious. This is one that's going to fly under the radar because most folks who are scoping out Rolex are going to be looking for something with a rotating bezel, a sports watch. This timepiece, of course, like the sports watches, 100 meters water resistant COSC chronometer, 48-hour power reserve, but with a double quickset functionality that allows you to rapidly cycle both the day and the date should the watch run down or encounter an irregular length month. By pulling the crown to the intermediate position, you are able to individually adjust the date and the day. 36 millimeters, I can recommend this watch for a wrist as small as 13 centimeters circumference. Now, if full yellow gold isn't enough for you, you are a raffish dandy and you have a taste for the extravagant. Well, frankly, this has got to be enough, because if this doesn't do, nothing will. FP Journe Tourbillon Souverain, 40 millimeters in platinum, entirely factory paved with gems. As you can see, this is paved. The primary reason why this watch once retailed for $430,000 compared to a final retail price of $160,000 for the platinum 40mm tourbillon, you could see that every surface has been invested with immaculately cut gems. The clarity is outstanding. In each case, the cut is impeccable. And on the dial side, note the use of white gold, all in black polish, with individually set brilliant cut gems. Now, of course, you have everything that we love about the Tourbillon Souverain, including the wire-style tourbillon carriage beating away at 21,600 vibrations per hour with its polished filigree outline, overcoil hairspring, and free-sprung architecture. You'll also note that the half bridge for the tourbillon carriage is completely specular finished and continuously rounded. Now turn the watch over, the platinum and the diamonds giving way to gold, 18 karat rose gold. You can see the remontoir d'égalité, the linear titanium spring that acts as a buffer between the barrel and the tourbillon itself. So for the first roughly 28-30 hours of power reserve, the amplitude is completely constant. There's no diminution of amplitude as you would find with a single barrel watch that does not include that constant force mechanism. Now when you wind the watch, I should mention, the power reserve works like a chronometer, meaning when it's fully wound, the power reserve indicates 0 hours since last fully wound. And that is just like a marine chronometer, where it was important to wind the watch every 24 hours. It wasn't important to know how much time was left in the run, but the interval since last winding. And that's why a marine chronometer style power reserve is used here, a watch that is both very accurate and very rare. This is the best of everything and one of the most extensively handmade FP Journe watches. An unusual timepiece right down to the full deployant clasp, an unusual feature on Journe watches, with a diamond paved baguette set buckle outside the folding clasp. This is a watch that in every regard represents the rarest of the rare from a company that in most years makes between about 800 and 600 watches. Truly special. If you want the one no one has, this is it. That said, there's a lot that Zinn, a decidedly blue-collar and utilitarian mechanical watch brand, has going for it. And as you guys know, I am a Zinn owner and enthusiast, and this Model 857S UTC is spectacular for the amount of content you get for the price. 43 millimeters, the watch uses a stainless steel case that has been first invested with the carbon diffusion process called tegament, which penetrates into the metal. It's not just a surface treatment, and that makes the surface 1200 Vickers. That's just the steel. Now the hard block is 1800 to 2000 Vickers. The hard block is a coating that is supported underneath by the tegament steel. So on a conventional hard black coated watch, because the steel underneath is softer than the coating, the steel is going to dent upon the application of pressure, and then the coating is going to fracture in an eggshell fashion. By exercising tegament, then coating with hard black, Zinn is able to provide a tough underpinning to avoid fracturing of the hard black. As a result, you're unlikely to ever put a mark of any kind in this watch. Now, it features the captive bezel system, and you can see that the bezel is held on by screws, and that's important because it means you can't accidentally snap the bezel off by accident, so it's very robust. Let's hear the bezel. Most bidirectional bezels do not have a sharp mechanical detent. They're a little bit numb. This one is exceptionally crisp. You'll also love the fact that the watch is 80,000 ampere per meter anti-magnetic. It is a soft iron inner cage that is mil-Gauss, or 1000 Gauss, so it is a mil-Gauss in effect. 200 meters water resistant, scratch resistant, anti-magnetic. The watch also features a copper sulfate capsule in the flank of the case. This can be replaced, but it pulls any moisture that might intrude into the case. It pulls it out of the case, and the watch is filled with nitrogen before it leaves the factory to displace all the dust, oxygen, and moisture that might have been in at the point of shipment. The watch does have 2 time zones, and I'm going to highlight that for a moment. As you can see, We have two independent time zones, one of which is represented by that lovely shock signal yellow hand. You'll also note that the watch is a chronograph, and you can operate your chronograph dual-time watch while enjoying a remarkably well-tuned chronograph mechanism. I have to say, all things considered, this is one of the best ones that you're going to feel. Crisp cam action. It is a cam chronograph, but it's as sharp as an Omega Moon watch, which is to say best of the best for cam chronos. The strap is incredibly substantial. You can see there's some broguing going on here, as there's leather stitched on top of leather with a contrasting stitch, and of course you've got a matching tegument and hard black buckle. Throw it on the wrist, it's comfortable, it's easy to wear, it is stark, there's no doubt about that, but you are getting so much functionality here. A watch that is a sports watch, yes, but in multiple dimensions, as you've got the bi-directional timing bezel, the second time zone, the date, the chronograph functionality, and all of the resistances that make this watch tough stuff. Of all the watches on the show today, this is probably the best value for what you're getting. A watch made in Frankfurt and iconic of its brand. This is as good as Zinn watches get. Well, other than my own EZM 1.1. Sticking with our hard black theme, this one's even harder. Full ceramic case, launched in 2019, 43.5 millimeters with titanium hardware and a black ceramic case. This is the Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meter, probably the best watch Omega launched last year. You'll note that the dial is a bit different than a standard Diver 300 meter in that it doesn't include a date, and whereas the standard dial features high polish for its ceramic base, and then recesses for the waves, which are cut by laser on the standard dial. Here you can see that the dial is all of a matte finish in ceramic, and the waves themselves are of a gloss finish. Let's hear the bezel. I have to say it's the best sounding and best feeling bezel I have ever experienced on one of these Diver 300 meters. It's taken quite a few years for Omega to get on top of bezel feel, but we're now talking about a 120 click bezel that is as satisfying as Rolex. Now there is a ceramic insert for the bezel, and you'll note all of the characters, the indices, the triangle index, of course the numerals, they are actually a cold enamel fill. Helium escape valve here in titanium. You can now open it while you're underwater during a dive. If you are a saturation diver and you need that feature, it is available. There is a matching black strap, which you'll note conforms to the end of the case, not just the curve of the case, but also the slope of the lugs, so it has a highly integrated look. 300 meters water resistant, 55-hour power reserve. It's a chronometer, but it's also amagnetic. Unlike the Zinn, which is anti-magnetic, this really has no upper limit, as the caliber 8806 can be exposed to extreme magnetism over 15,000 Gauss without any ill effect. Coaxial escapement tri-level, and of course very tough against shock with a full balance bridge and a free-sprung index. This is a gorgeous watch that offers you a ton of functionality and features, including many technologies and refinements you cannot get on a Rolex. It looks great on the wrist. It's not excessively large, nor is it excessively thick, and I'd have to say that even on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, it fits easily. Being made mostly of titanium, sapphire, and ceramic, it is very, very light, and also, thanks to the ceramic, very, very, very hard and difficult to scratch. If you're like me and you can't stand swirls and scratches, and you want to know that your pre-owned watch has never been polished, this is the way to go, because you have absolute assurance as well as durability going forward. Technically, this might be the most interesting watch on the show today, and yes, I am counting the Defy INVENTOR. This is the Blancpain Villeret Carrousel Phase de Lune. As you can see, a timepiece with a moon phase, a carousel regulator, a radial serpentine style date, and a Grand Faux enamel dial. This red gold dress watch, launched in 2014, is 42 millimeters in diameter, and you can see it's made old school with welded on lug profiles, that sharp break between the lug and the case band. Both surfaces hand finished, by the way. You weld on the lug and then you remove evidence of the welded joints. This is a handmade watch starting from the word go, the case itself. Matching folding clasp with a titanium leaf spring inside. You can see underneath there is a brilliant system that is an adjuster for the calendar. So you can see how I'm able to adjust the calendar without any pusher adjuster tool and without putting any dimples in the flank of the case. There are no pusher adjusters to mar the lines of the watch. Moreover, the system will block the changing of the moon phase or the date manually during the turnover, so you cannot accidentally damage it by trying to use a calendar corrector during the danger zone. If you take a look at the carousel, you can see that it is a flying carousel, no upper bridge, and you might be asking, what is a carousel? Well, it's a system invented by a Dane, Bonne Bonnickson, in the 1890s that's much like a tourbillon in that it rotates the regulator, the escapement and the balance, relative to gravity to even out gravity-induced timing deviation, but it is a much more durable system, better suited to a watch. Also important, two separate drives. One turns the carriage, one operates the escapement. So if, for example, the carriage were to stop, the escapement would continue. That is why a carousel is used for the hand/movement of the freak, because you set the watch by moving the movement. You can move the movement and the carriage separate from the escapement. That's part of what makes this system more durable. The dial, of course, grand faux enamel and exceptional. You can see the fired blue serpentine indicator for the date and leaf hands in skeletonized form. Vincent Calabrese, co-founder of the AHCI, designed both Blancpain's original flying tourbillon and the flying carousel. So this watch also has high horology street cred and independent horology street cred both. The movement is the 225L automatic winding. It has a 5-day power reserve, so if this isn't an everyday watch for you, you can put it down for a few days, pick it up, and expect that it will still be keeping time up to 120 hours later. You can see that the rotor itself has been engraved and skeletonized, and then the bridges also have glorious Côte de Genève with mirrored beveling on their edge, and of course satination on all of the wheels individually. If you note the spoke of one of the reduction wheels in the winding system, the spoke pattern looks like the wheel of a Lamborghini Murcielago or Aventador, and that is deliberate due to the long-term partnership between Blancpain and Lamborghini. And hey, there can only be one number one. Number one, El Primo, or I should say, in this hobby, El Primero, you better believe it. This timepiece has it all. That said, if you want just a little bit more independent high horology cred, don't go for the Blancpain by Vincent Calabrese, no. Go for a full independent product. This is the DBS by de Bethune, a timepiece launched in 2005 that represented one of the earliest applications of their first in-house movement with the twin barrels, a 5-day power reserve and a moon phase, as you can see, that is spherical, featuring 1/2 white palladium, 1/2 blued steel. Again, the adjustment interval here is 122 years. Pusher adjuster on the flank, you can see the ogival or torpedo-like bullet ends of the lugs. This watch, just over 42 millimeters in diameter, nevertheless is only 10.8 millimeters thick with a bullhead style winder, and as you can see, hinge lugs on one end, conventional lugs on the opposite. This is iconic of David Zanetta's design style. He was the co-founder and co-founding partner along with watchmaker Denis Flageolet. The style is from Zanetta, the watchmaking is from Denis. Now you can see, in addition to the patented moon phase system, we have bluing of titanium for the individual indices of the hours. You can see that there's a lovely media-breasted sort of frosted, grained ring that acts as a chapter ring as well as the track for the hours, and that media blasted surfacing contrasting beautifully with the Côte de Bethune, which is a very fine and, as you can see, richly grained Côte de Genève. You'll also note that the bridge at the center is polished steel, black polished, triple parachute shock protection with a spring on each side of the balance bridge and then Inca block on the center for the balance staff. We'll get a little bit closer and you can see both the proprietary 2-element flat hairspring that beats with concentric property of an overcoil without the shock susceptibility of an overcoil, and then below that you can see the yoke-shaped non-annular, that is non-circular balance. It's non-annular, made of titanium, and you can see that there are small bullet-shaped platinum masses designed to put all of the mass of the balance outboard. Twin barrels, again, manual wind, 5-day power reserve, and there is a power reserve indicator on the reverse side of the watch. This is number 29, and back in those days, de Bethune was building maybe about 100 watches per year, so absolute exclusivity is assured, and you can even see the attention to detail as the crown itself features a spectacular double knurling and a drilling pattern. Everything about this watch handmade, hand assembled, and hand finished. This is true craft horology from a company that gives you extravagant space age style but absolute traditional watchmaking integrity and finish as part of the package. It is my favorite independent. All right, this is a company we don't discuss often enough on the show, and I actually like them a great deal. I like the brothers, English, who run the company, and I like the products they make. I also love their serial tributes to great machines throughout history, and this limited edition 300-piece stainless steel Hughes H-4 Hercules is possibly the coolest aviation tribute watch they have made yet. Now, the timepiece is 43 millimeters in steel, and as you can see, the case is broken up into a few different components. There's a case back, there's a mid case that's integral with the lugs, and then there's the bezel structure. Now, what this means is that the lugs are effectively decoupled from the form of the case, so though this is a 43 millimeter watch, it wears extremely easy on the wrist, comfortable, broad, no doubt, large, like its namesake, but not overpowering in size. The watch fits on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, and I could recommend it for a wrist as small as 15 centimeters. The watch, of course, pays tribute to the Howard Hughes H-4 Hercules, better known as the Spruce Goose. Of course, the airplane, which flew in November 1947, all of one time, was made mostly of birch, and we've got the birch to prove it, as the winding rotor here uses inserts from the original aircraft, which was constructed of wood because it was a non-strategic material during World War II when the plane was being designed and built. The movement, as well as the case, constructed in London, and the movement is a 50-hour automatic. It's the BWC-02, which is their exclusive caliber that is designed in conjunction with La Joux-Perret of Switzerland. It beats weight at 28.8. It features the full-size profile to fill a large case back, and by the way, 100 meters water resistant. It also includes a double quick-set function, one for the hour and one for the second time zone. You can see, or I should say, one for the date and one for the second time zone. So you can see there is a 24-hour second time zone, and then there is a metallic date disc down at 6 o'clock. The watch is a great looking piece, and actually I'm going to give you a few lume shots because we're reaching that point in the show where I feel like I've been remiss, and you need to see some of these by night. Okay, there's the H-4 Hercules, looking great. Note you can see the second time zone at night. There's the Zin 857 UTC. Note the bezel is brightly lumed. There's the Omega Seamaster Diver 300 meter. Note the bezel pearl and the minute hand are differential, so you can pick them out more easily while submerged. And right there, for cross comparison's sake, you can see the Rolex Sub. Okay, Audemars Piguet. It's been a long time since I've featured a Royal Oak chronograph in rose gold and 39 millimeters, but that's exactly what we have here. This is the reference 25860OR, a glorious silver Grande Tapisserie in the much sought 39 millimeter case size. This watch is in outstanding condition. It still wears as beautifully as when the original Royal Oak chronograph came to market in 1997. The 39 millimeter case size is so persuasive that Audemars Piguet has recently relaunched a similarly sized 38 millimeter watch. They didn't want to exactly reprise history, but frankly, that is an admission by AP itself that they got it right the first time. The 39 wears well on my wrist. It's not excessively thick at 11.1 millimeters, so it would easily fit underneath the cuff. Now, this watch does feature screw-down crown and pusher, so I take its 50 meter water resistance quite literally. This is a swimmable watch. If you've ever wondered what's the cutoff for me, it's 50 meters with a screw-down crown. 50 meters without, I consider to be something of a dress watch water resistance, effectively equivalent to 30 meters. 50 with a screw-down is serious for surface use. Now, you can see the bracelet is beautifully made. This is really what you're buying when you buy a Royal Oak. Yes, there's a high horology Frédéric Piguet movement inside, but the execution of the metalwork, especially when it's rendered on precious metal, this is the standout feature of the watch. You can see that the ends of the intermediate links have been polished. The edges or shoulders of the links have been perfectly beveled, and you can see how perfectly aligned the individual bevels are from link to link. The bezel, of course, is octagonal but rounded, inspired by a diving helmet, with hexagonal white gold bolts inside. On the Royal Oaks, they are gold. On the offshores, they are steel. You'll appreciate that the dial features a high level of contrast, so it's easier to read. There's also the richness of rose gold hands, individual indices, and my favorite part, the polished rose gold chapter rings for the registers. Turn the watch over, you can see this watch is G series, so late 2000s, and in excellent condition. The profile of the case continues the character lines of the bezel all the way down through the case back. So this is a truly special watch, right down to the attention to detail, with the crowns and the screw down shoulders of the pushers being hexagonal, just like the bolts inside the bezel. Last year, FP Journe celebrated an anniversary, 20 years since his original subscription series, Tourbillon Remontoir. And this watch, the 20th anniversary FP Journe Tourbillon, pays tribute to that history while advancing the state of the art. First, it's larger, 13.6 millimeters thick by 42 millimeters in diameter. It is platinum and massive. The dial itself, which features a variety of finish, but most notably a sort of clou de Paris engine turning. The dial is made of 18-karat rose gold, and the movement is made of 18-karat rose gold, which means gold inside a platinum watch. This is a hefty piece. You'll also note that this is the Tourbillon Vertical, as it's sometimes known, because it features a vertical tourbillon. Now, the idea here was whether the watch was sitting on your dresser like this, like this, like this, or like this, the tourbillon would always be sitting in the same orientation with respect to gravity for at least half the day, the period when the watch is on your dresser. And that helps to restore the original purpose of the tourbillon, which is to equalize the effects of gravity on a watch that more or less sits in one position. Originally, it was a pocket watch sitting in this position in your jacket. Today, it's generally the time the watch spends idle at night on a flat surface. Therefore, we have the vertical tourbillon as well as the vista that affords us. Now, a big change from the previous tourbillon, this one spins in 30-second circuits. So whereas the old tourbillon and Tourbillon Souverain featured a 1-minute tourbillon, this is a 30-second tourbillon. You can also see that there is a mirrored concave profile that sort of reflects the tourbillon from many different angles, creating the impression of a larger space and giving you a better view of the mechanism. You'll also note that the bridge structure is entirely of black polish, so this is truly impressive. Free sprung with an overcoil, just like the older watch. It adds to the state of the art with that higher oscillation, or I should say higher rotation rate. It still beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour. Another change, the watch now has an 80-hour power reserve rather than the 40 to 42 of the previous watch. And of course, as with the previous watch, when you wind it past the low end of its power reserve, a remontoir d'égalité constant force device comes into play. That ensures the constant amplitude of the balance, yes, but it also affords you a deadbeat second system once you wind past a certain point. Now, the watch also includes enamel dials, so the hours, minutes, and seconds, that is grand faux enamel and beautifully executed, an artisanal element previously not featured on FP Journe Tourbillon watches. Turn it all over and you can see the caliber 1519. Work started in, well, as you can see, the year 2015, and then 19 is the size, so 19 French lean. All of rose gold, you can see the remontoir on the underside. All the remontoir surfaces in steel have been black polished. You can see the spring, you can see the ratcheting wheel that regulates the deadbeat, as well as impulses the balance. And the timepiece is massive. It includes a matching platinum pin buckle. Throw it on the wrist. It looks good, it feels good, but it's different than previous Journe Tourbillon, as it is a large watch. This is a timepiece that is truly an exhibition piece on your wrist. It's meant to be seen. Although it will slide underneath the cuff, this watch is a little bit too fantastical in its presentation and its outgoing aesthetic to ever disappear underneath the sleeve. Whereas the previous Tourbillon Souverain was more of a cerebral tourbillon for the quasi-introvert, this one is very much for the extrovert. We're going to look at the DBS on my wrist real quick, because I realized I forgot to put this one on my wrist. You can see 42.5 millimeters. It's not terribly huge, and at under 10.9 millimeters thick, it's 10.8. This is a really slender watch that could easily be worn as a dress timepiece. I saved the best for last. 42 millimeters in gray gold, which is white gold all the way through. A limited edition of 200 pieces, and dedicated to the principle of chronometry, this is the Jaeger LeCoultre Duometre a Quantieme Lunaire. A limited series from 2011. This watch features 2 mainspring barrels, 2 drivetrains, and, as you can see, two separate power reserve indicators for barrels that have very distinct jobs. Constant jumping seconds with central seconds scrolling. The watch features a matte black dial and, as you can see, a handsome and somewhat quirky photorealistic moon phase. The timepiece, of course, is incredibly accurate, designed to be set to the 1/6 of a second. You'll note the zero reset system first stops the foudroyant and then resets the seconds hand. Now the watch has a barrel for the balance, that is the regulator, and then it has one for all of the other functions, the time as well as the date and the moon phase. Of course, the watch features a pusher adjuster that allows you to quickly and easily step the date. And you can see one of the brilliant features of JLC here is that they do in fact have a blocker mechanism there. So you see how I can step the date now, approaching 12 in the afternoon. But now that I'm approaching 12 midnight, if I try to set it, it doesn't advance. They think of everything. Now, as you can see, the case is handmade. White gold with welded lugs, as with the Blancpain, but here we go further. As you can see, there's a clear break between the case flank and the lug itself. That stepped out lug profile, giving the lugs more of an individual sculptural beauty and allowing the high polish of the lug to stand in stark contrast to the satin finish of the mid case. Now, the timepiece does feature an extravagant movement. This is the caliber 381, and it's basically built like a longa with sunray motif across the individual bridges. And that's called Côte de Soleil. It's basically a radiant burst of stripes that originates from the balance, which is the focal point of the movement. Now you have two different barrels with ratcheting systems. So this is like an old pocket watch. It's designed after a Bausch built by Victorin Piguet in the late 19th century. JLC converted several of those Bausch into complicated timepieces with two drivetrains. The idea here is that the regulator always has a barrel dedicated to it. So even though all of the other functions, the time telling, the date, and the moon phase, draw energy, there's no loss of amplitude, because when we double the power requirements, we double the power supply. There are two different drivetrains converging on one Swiss lever, so that regulator acts as a traffic cop, turning one on and the other off. So off, on, alternating back and forth. It's free sprung and it beats away at 21.6, but what I want to call your attention to is the standard of finish and the depth of this movement. All of the bridges are that material German silver that you associate with Longa, meaning that the nickel copper zinc primarily expresses its copper to create this golden hue. And you can see, in addition to the coat, there are both blued and black polished screws. Blued screws for assembly, black polished screws for regulation. And there's a mirrored anglage here that is superior to anything you'll find on a JLC priced under $100,000. This was a showpiece watch for them and a showpiece family, so they dedicated their highest standard of finish and regulation to these watches, even though they were not priced at the top of JLC's catalog. Mine, which was the Chronograph, was the most accurate mechanical watch I ever owned, keeping time to better than 1 second a day, and this model is known to be even more accurate. Okay guys, if you saw anything you like, or you'd like to sell me a watch, email me directly, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for anything you see here. Time out, Tim out, and thanks for logging on.